The sad truth is, most people will not change in their life until the pain gets so bad that they're left with two options. Either bounce back from the pain or die bitter. Now, some examples of this for you are heartbreak, or investing the rest of your savings into a business, or pulling the trigger and moving across the country, forcing yourself to survive. And in today's video, this is the exact story that I'll be telling you. How a young man threw himself into the unknown just to force his growth. Because according to Parkinson's law, when you launch yourself into the unknown, you threaten your safety and your peace, and your time to become successful shrinks. So I have posted thousands of videos online across all of my multiple platforms, so you've seen me on your screens. You've seen the life changes I've had over the years. But now I think it's about time that I've told my full story. Telling you guys who I am, where I come from, and how I didn't take the typical path, but I ended up with the life that I'm living now. This will be the story of how I went from being a normal homeschooled kid to now being a Muslim creative entrepreneur living life on my own terms. I have freedom. I have the freedom to practice my own religion. I have the freedom to work out in the middle of the day. I have the freedom to spend my money on experiences and things that benefit both me and my family. And this all occurred by me rooting myself in the deen and working for Allah's pleasure. And I had zero handouts and support, and I still managed to finish memorizing the Quran at 16 and get married at 22 and build a large following online full of Muslims just like myself who are aligned with my goals, and that itself has allowed me to be financially independent. But more importantly, the man that I became during this entire journey so far. My goal with this video is to show you guys how I didn't live a typical life, and I never had no plan B, but how you can go very far at a young age by staying true to what you want, staying curious about life, and doing it with Allah in mind. So let's begin from the very top. But in order for you to understand my life, you have to understand my why. And that why for me, like many of you, are my parents. You see, many of us have immigrant parents, and you know their stories. You know how much they had to sacrifice their own goals and their own desires in order for your family to flourish. My father's first dream was to play cricket professionally in Pakistan. He played alongside the former minister and the cricket star Imran Khan, and was on his way to play for the national team. But because of family, he had to put that dream aside and leave to work at his family's cell phone store. Then came his second dream, which was to become a fighter pilot inside of the Pakistani army. So he signed up amongst 500 individuals, and he surpassed 498 of his classmates. He made it through as one of the 2 people to be selected inside of the team. But during his final exam, they discovered then and there that he was colorblind, and unfortunately he couldn't make the cut. So heartbroken, he left. Time went on, and then the opportunity to move to America landed in his lap and was presented to him. He knew it was going to be hard, leaving his country, leaving all the comfort of his home, but he knew what he had to do in order to secure the future of his family. So he packed his bags and he came to America without a lick of English and only $20 in his pocket. He worked every single job, from car washing to pizza deliveries to even photography. I remember him and I would even bond over cameras at some point. And eventually he worked his way up from there. He learned the language and the culture over here, and he just kept going. Around that time, he met my mother, who was from the Philippines. She converted to Islam, alhamdulillah, and both of them got married. And then they had 3 beautiful children, 2 of my older sisters, and then I myself on November 21st, 2000. And then together, their life began. But what my father sacrificed, it doesn't end there. Now, at the time, my father was a manager for a couple of the stores inside of the Penn Station. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the Penn Station, it is one of the main transportation hubs in New York, and it's where a lot of people commute daily. So there's a lot of stores in there. They have convenience stores. They sell drinks and snacks and food. Now, at the time, my father was making good money, so good that he was able to invest in purchasing 2 gas stations. But fast forward a couple of years, he got screwed over by his business partner, and he lost everything. After that incident, my father received a phone call from one of his friends in New Orleans. So then that friend tells him, hey, the taxi business down here is booming. New Orleans is a touristy city, lots of opportunity. You should move down here and take advantage, blah, 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 blah. So to my dad, he had a family of 5, and he had no cash flow coming in. That's a scary position to be as a father. So he had a responsibility on his shoulders. So again, putting family first, he did what he had to do. He picked all of us up, and we went to New Orleans, the good old South. At that time, my father wasn't really religious. He wasn't that practicing, but alhamdulillah, he never fell into any haram money. He stayed true to his mission and did what he needed to do for the sake of his family. And he kept his vision straight. And I'm sure many of you watching, your parents can relate to the exact same type of struggles that my dad has gone through. But my biggest takeaway from my dad's story as his son is that he never got to achieve his goals because of the circumstances that he was in. He had no choice but to sacrifice his own goals for me and my family, and that is exactly what pushes me every single day, to make sure that I'm living life to its absolute fullest, to honor the efforts that both of my parents have made. After my family moved to New Orleans, my dad's life took a little bit of a turn religiously, and he started focusing more on his deen. So from a young age, I was able to see this slow transformation that my dad was making. You know, he started going to the masjid more, he started talking about the deen more, we started reading hadith in the household, and he started encouraging me to memorize some surahs, to, you know, attend some competitions, and to beautify my voice in the Quran. So as time was going on, the emphasis for higher Islamic education was being instilled in my family and the household. But one of the fears of my dad when he saw how society was turning was he didn't know if when we grew up we were going to be able to hold on to the deen. Alright, so that brings us to me. I won't go too much into detail, but my father was pretty strict growing up. I never set foot in a public school, and I stayed in an Islamic private school until the 3rd grade. From there, my father wanted me to memorize the Quran and learn the basics of the deen. So I began taking Quran classes in the morning and then being homeschooled in the evenings by my mother. And I barely made any progress during that time, but it was my father that actually saw the potential in me to memorize the Quran. So to complete the memorization, he sent me to a boarding school in New York. And this school was a very harsh and a very conservative school. And man, those were some of the most hardest years of my life. Now in the boarding school, I learned a lot about life. Not because of how much that I did, but actually how much I didn't do. We barely had any freedom in life outside of our campus. We had to wear our uniform 24/7. I had to keep my hair shorter than an inch. And our meals were pretty much cut out for us, and they were the exact same every single week. No phone, no understanding of how the outside world was like. And the staff there barely spoke any English. So this was a very, very, very conservative school. And it was some of the most challenging years of my life. Being only 12 or 13 years old, a young teenager without a family, you go through many struggles and emotions. And those are the most critical years that you have when you're developing as a youngster. And it was there that I felt the most scared, alone, isolated. I spent many nights over there just crying and missing home. And although it was very tough, I knew that if I can make it through there, then I can make it anywhere in life. And it's funny because I'm actually grateful for those challenges, for it molded me to who I am today. That responsibility forced me to mature, and I learned so much there. Obviously, I learned the Quran there, but it was where I started my first hustle, where the food there was so bland that I would go to the grocery store and buy snacks so that I can sell it at lunchtime, so the kids over there would have flavor with their meals. Things like snack packs, and ice cream, and Mexican candies, and honey buns. And believe it or not, I sold a good amount. I was able to get my first iPod with that money, and even my first 2 iPhones. Alhamdulillah, I graduated when I was 16 years old, and I was excited to live. I mean, I could finally grow my hair out and dress the way that I wanted to, you know? I felt so free, and I never wanted to be in a position again where my freedom was compromised. Ever. Ever. That was like the biggest takeaway. So I started taking care of myself, and I started lifting weights, started watching videos on self-improvement, and I started reading books. I started posting on Instagram for fun, and you know, started wearing nicer clothing. Right now we decided that we're gonna go hiking. So we're gonna probably catch a golden hour and take some pictures for Instagram and stuff. I guess you can say those simple pleasures of life were stripped away from me from such a young age that I had so much time to think about it. So I've already had this pent-up energy inside to level up, and my dreams of doing big things just grew and grew and grew. So then around this time, I was posting videos on social media, and I was still attending my college. My major is biology. I have a biology major. And it was around this time that my mind started to open up to the possibilities of life. And it was also around that time that I started to question my belief in the education system. But I kind of wanted to tell you guys that I have changed my major again. I remember this one day. I had this very vivid memory of me sitting in math class one day. My teacher was explaining the lesson and I zone out. My brain goes to the future. I start thinking about my family, myself, how one day they're going to rely on me, and how I'm the only son, and how I always have this responsibility and desire to be more for them. So then I regain my focus back into the present moment, and I'm there in my classroom. But after having that moment, I'm sad, because this thing isn't what I want. But a few months passed, and COVID hit, and it gave me a lot of time to think. So I was able to zoom out in my life and really continue down that thought of asking myself, is this really what I want? Would I be happy at 60 knowing that I could have taken another path in my 20s and really pushed myself to my limits and most likely ended up on the other side still okay? All my classes at that time shifted online to Zoom, and my teacher had no idea how to teach the math lesson, and this was a perfect excuse for me to drop out. I didn't want to, but life kind of felt like it was just floating along and it didn't really have meaning to it. You know what I mean? And if I wanted this so-called life of freedom with barakah, there's absolutely no way I can keep living in this bubble. So I sat myself down and I thought for a few days on what could be the next step in my journey. And I realized there's only a few options that I have here. Either go back to school and never give my dreams a shot, or pull the trigger with uncertainty and give it my all. And so I gathered all the confidence that I had, and I prayed my istikhara, and I pulled the trigger. Now, when you make a decision like that, two things happen. One, you get very, very excited because you made a big decision. And two, you're very, very ready to take action. But here's the thing. If you don't take action quickly, you'll fall into excuses and you're going to dig yourself a hole. So I knew that I couldn't be in the comfort of my own home and make progress at the same time. So I made the decision to move out of my parents' house and give this my all. I spoke to my parents and they were not happy, but they heard me out and they respected my decision to move out to Dallas, Texas. You know, I'll tell you, although there was sadness in my parents' eyes, there was a hint of hope and happiness that their son is going to come back a different man. Now, at the time, I was only making $550 from my YouTube AdSense. I didn't have a business established. I didn't have a personal brand established. I was very, very new to this concept of turning this into a career. Now that I'm kind of like detached from my family, I'm able to do things more independently. I have a lot of things that I want to do. Yet alone, I didn't even know if I could do that. But honestly, I didn't care. I had to commit to what I was going to set out to do. So I packed my bags and I left.
Wow. I'm kind of lost for words right now because my separation anxiety is kind of kicking in, but this is kind of it. It's just my bed. That's me. My desk, but I'm showing this because this goes to show that I started off in this tiny little space and I made it work, you know? It shows that if you truly enjoy something, you can make it work anywhere.
And this was kind of part 2 of me being alone. This was the most pivotal era for me. I jumped back into the very thing that I was afraid of, which was being alone. But I did it. And in doing so, it gave me a whole set of new problems, but it wasn't until I was able to build the right systems in my life that allowed me to proceed in achieving my goals. What you guys gotta understand here is that when you do something with the right intention for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will guide you and He will open up doors for you. In the beginning, finding my placement and finding my journey and figuring this entire thing out was very, very hard. There were sleepless nights. There were moments where I felt like I was breaking under pressure and I didn't want to tell my parents. I didn't tell them at all. You know, I had no handouts. I had no support. I literally just had the car, all of my clothing, and $550. And I walked out to figure out how can I come back to support my family, to take care of my family, because that was my driving force. And my motivation was I didn't want to wait years to take care of my family through a college degree. No, I needed to do it now. I needed to figure out my own stuff in order for me to come back stronger, better, brighter, more put together, more responsible, more mature, to take care of my family, to take care of my parents. You know, I was viewing it from the point of view that My father has been through so much, and you guys now know his story. I couldn't sit there knowing that, okay, I'm the only son and I have a responsibility towards my family, and I'm going to lead a mediocre life. I couldn't. I've been through too much. My parents have been through too much, you know? So the only common sense thing to do was to leave my family home, and I did it. I committed to becoming the man that I saw in my future. So I learned the science of social media and business. I learned the art of self-improvement. I've built systems that work for me. And I took it even further than what I wanted, and I built those systems rooted in Islam. And there are still nights where I stay out confused and scared and on my computer trying to figure things out. But without sitting with myself and figuring out my own situation, I wouldn't be here today. And that's the message I'm trying to get across to you guys. I wouldn't have been able to level up, or whatever you want to call it, and get married at 22, or build an online business where I'm teaching people how to build a life that they're proud of as well. And that is what you have to do. If you have that same fire inside of you to take action like I did, I share those exact systems and frameworks inside of the Elevated Muslim Letters. And if you want to be a part of that, then the link is down below for you to join. But what I'm trying to get across here, telling you guys my entire story, is that I didn't take the typical route. I didn't live the typical life. I didn't grow up the typical child. I surely enough did not go through life without any traumas at a young age. At the age of 12, leaving family and living in New York. And, you know, even my father leaving his country and coming over here to support his family. And you have all of these people in life who are going through struggles and going through challenges, yet they come out on the other side. Why? Because they chose themselves. They committed to themselves for a higher purpose, you know? And for us, we have that benefit and that advantage of being able to grasp things through the wisdom and the knowledge of our deen. You know, so if anyone on earth should be successful, it should be you and I. For us, we should strive for excellence, and that is what I'm trying to get across in this video. If you're someone who's looking for your own path, and you know that you have it inside of you, the same way I knew I had it inside of me when I graduated from New York at the age of 16, 17, then let this be your sign to pull the trigger and to commit and to take a chance on yourself, because you gotta grab life by the freaking neck and never look back. You have to do the stuff that you know is right for you and never look back. Stop waiting for life to happen, because it already is. Bro, you got born. Life is already here. It's here. So wake up, commit to yourself, and never look back. Just do that. Drop that lifestyle that's holding you down and build a new one. And prioritize the man in the freaking mirror. This entire story is just about a boy who had a dream and who found the confidence in himself somehow to change his life. And then he didn't do it in the comfort of his home, so he left. And alhamdulillah, through the systems that he's built and through the mercy of God, he was able to accomplish great things for himself. Not just for himself, but for his family as well, and for his community online. But that is the power of taking the first step in the direction that you choose. Because if you don't have a dream, you will be assigned one. If you don't have a goal, you will be assigned one in school. If you don't have a vision, you will be assigned one. Because the entire education system is programmed to be that way. It's not necessarily a bad thing, right? But it's for people who can't think for themselves. And I guarantee you, if you're watching up until this point of the video, you can think for yourself. And you have it in you to think for yourself. And you have it in you to go out there and pave a path for yourself, for your family. And you can achieve the things that you want, and you can do the things that you want. So always remember that I'm praying for you as a brother, and I hope you do well.